It's time to cook with Susan Beck. Today I'm going to make for you pepper jack mac and cheese. Now mac and cheese is so much better homemade than out of a box. We're going to have this ooey gooey rich sauce made with not only pepper jack cheese but sharp cheddar cheese. So let's see what we need to make pepper jack mac and cheese. Our ingredients are pepper jack cheese, cheddar cheese, and a 1/4 cup margarine, that's half a stick. A 1/4 cup of flour, whipping cream, we'll use a 1/2 cup, 1½ cups of milk, and for our seasoning, Worcestershire sauce, some ground pepper, salt, and ground mustard. You will also need 3 to 4 cups of your choice of pasta. Additionally, I will need a pot of boiling water. So this kettle is about 2/3 of the way full. I want to salt this well. You will tell the difference in your pasta when you salt it or not. So be sure to salt any pasta you make. I'm going to turn this up on high and put on a lid so that we get this to boiling before we add our pasta. As for what kind of pasta to use, that choice is really up to you. Today I'm going to use some cavatappi. These are, I don't know, my favorite. I don't know why. Anyway, they're like little corkscrews. They're hollow through the middle like any other macaroni, but they're just kind of a fun shape. And whenever I make pepper jack mac and cheese, these are kind of my go-to pasta. But whatever you have in the cupboard, or whatever your favorite pasta is, go ahead and use it. I'm going to be putting 3 to 4 cups, somewhere in that neighborhood is about what the sauce will cover well, into my water once it comes to while my water's boiling. I'm going to get my cheeses shredded. I've started on my cheddar here. I need 1 cup of cheddar cheese. We love sharp cheddar at our house. It just got a little more of a pungent taste to it, but you can decide what kind of cheddar you would like to use. Now for my pepper jack, I'm just going to break that in half. This brick I have here should make about 2 cups once I shred all of it up. By shredding it, it just melts a little better in our sauce that we're going to make. I like to get my cheese prepped ahead of time so that once my sauce has thickened with my flour, margarine, milk, and cream, my cheeses are ready to go in. So I'm just going to finish shredding my pepper jack cheese using my box shredder. My water is boiling, so let's get our pasta into the water. Remove the lid there, and again, 3 to 4 cups of pasta noodles. I'm going to go ahead and use 4. These don't really fill my cup real well. There's a lot of space down in there, so there's a few left. Not quite a 16-ounce box of this batch of noodles. I'm just going to give those a little swirl to make sure they're not sticking together, and I'll put my lid back on until they come to a boil. Once they get to a boil, then I like to just remove the lid. I don't have to worry quite as much about them boiling over, and I'll let them cook to the manufacturer's directions, which is usually probably like 8 to 10 minutes, depending on how well done you want your noodles. Now for the roux. All right, that's a French word, R-O-U-X, roux. And the roux is the basis of many things that need to be thickened. I made a potato soup recently. I wanted it to have a thick sauce. I added a roux. If you make scalloped potatoes or au gratin cheesy potatoes, you're going to start with a roux. Any homemade mac and cheese is going to begin with a roux for your sauce. So roux just means that you're adding some kind of fat. I'm going to use that margarine, 1/4 cup, and I had kind of cut that into some little chunks. So I'm just going to spread those around in my pan and turn this on to medium heat. Just by cutting it into some chunks, it just melts a little faster. After that butter has melted, then you add something that thickens it. So we're going to use flour today. Cornstarch is sometimes used for a roux. All right, let that melt for a second here. And then in goes my flour. And I'm just going to spread it kind of around on top of that butter. This is something really, it is useful. Sometimes it can take a little practice to get really good at it. You always want to have your flour and your softened fat, in my case margarine, in before you start adding the liquids. So I'm just going to let that melt a little bit more. And then I will be adding very slowly my 1/2 cup of my 1.5 cups of milk and my 1/2 cup of whipping cream. And slow is key. Let's have a closer look at that. I'm going to work in that milk slowly. There's another 1/2 cup or so. I'm just going to keep stirring with my whisk. I do not want these lumps, so I need to let them kind of cook. And with that butter on the flour, it just melts in. And I don't know if you can tell through the video, but it is getting thicker. But I've still got some little lumpy spots, so I don't want to just dump in all the milk at once. Let's put in another 1/2 cup. Slow and steady. Alright, this is the end of my milk, and then I need to measure my cream. So using that same measuring cup, I'm just going to use a 1/2 cup of cream, and just using my whisk again, I'm just going to slowly add the cream. And this is looking good. Now my flour is not lumpy in there. If it is, you know, it still tastes okay, but you don't have quite as smooth a sauce. Now this is not necessarily overly thick yet. As this comes to a bit more of a boil, I'm going to bring it up to just where it starts to kind of boil hard. I don't want it to boil for a long time, and that's usually when it kind of changes over to a thickening instead of just a runny, milky sauce. And while that is working its way up to a little bubble, we need to give our noodles a toss over here. They're looking like they're softening right up. Again, back to my sauce. I do want to stir it frequently. Oh, this roux or white sauce is looking great. It's starting to come to that bubble, and it's definitely getting thicker as it kind of clings a little bit to my whisk there on the end. Let's add the seasonings. We're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. I just kind of eyeball that with a few twists around. We're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of ground mustard, and I'll do my wet ingredient last just so I can keep using the same measuring spoon here, and 1/2 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Again, back to my whisk, and oh, this has thickened nicely. So lastly, we're going to add in our cheeses. All right, so I'm just going to put in like 1 cup at a time and work in that pepper jack cheese and my cheddar cheese. So there's my pepper jack. I've got just a little more over here. A little more pepper jack and a cup of cheddar. And I just want to stir until that is melted. I've slowly added those cheeses, and it's become really thick and gooey. I just drained my noodles. I'm ready to put them into my sauce. Now, something I didn't mention when I started, I guess, that I probably should have pointed out right away, is that my saucepan here is oven proof. So something nice about this is that I can put this right into the oven and I don't have to dirty another pan. Instead of that whisk, I'm going to use my pasta claw over here. And I just want to toss and fold this so that all of my noodles are covered with that wonderful, somewhat spicy because of the pepper jack cheese sauce. Just look at that. Every piece of pasta is just thoroughly coated with our delicious sauce. Now this is optional, but if you'd like to put a few breadcrumbs over the top, sometimes that adds just a nice little crunch while it bakes. And then another little secret ingredient is adding some French fried onions to the top. Let's try those today as well. Now this is already warm from that warm sauce and those hot noodles. So just 20 minutes in the oven to just give the top of that just a nice little crunch is all you need. 350 degrees works well. Well, here's our pepper jack mac and cheese right out of the oven. Oh, and doesn't that look good? It's nice and golden brown with those toasted breadcrumbs on the top and those French fried onions. Yum, yum, yum. So, little trick, I like to put this oven mitt over the handle to remind my family that this pan was in the oven and it's extremely hot. So I don't want anybody to get burnt if they go to turn it or to pass it to someone. So, little safety tip there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and give myself a nice big scoop of this mac and cheese. And oh, every noodle is just coated so nicely with that gooey, warm cheese. Now, this could have a few variations to it. I'll talk about that while I let it cool a little bit because I think it's way too hot to taste. If you're not a fan of pepper jack cheese or you just want to change it up, any kind of cheese, 3 cups of any kind of cheese. You could keep 1 cup of cheddar and put in some American, or use some mozzarella or provolone or anything you'd like. Mix it up, try different things with it. You could also leave out the whipping cream if you would like it to be a little bit lower calorie, or sometimes I don't have whipping cream in my house, but we're kind of hungry for macaroni and cheese. I have made this many times with 2 cups of milk, with that extra ½ cup replacing the whipping cream. So feel free to make that change as well. I just love the flavor of this. You got the sharp cheddar cheese, but that pepper jack just gives it just the slightest kick. It's not really a real spicy dish at all. But I think you might like this new version of mac and cheese. Pepper jack mac and cheese.